Hello. In this video, we are going to look at how to take tables and represent them graphically, visually inside the table. And we will be making 4 different representations here. In the first 2, we'll be using heat map, color coding, 2 different ways. The third one, we will be using data bars, little bar graphs inside the spreadsheet cells. And then the last one, we will use icons, different color icons to represent the size of the quantity. So let's just go here. So we need to highlight the whole table, including the header row and the column on the side. And then we click conditional formatting. And here you can see the 3 ones we're going to look at. We're going to do the color scales first, then the data bars, and then the icon set. So for color scales, again, we've got the data highlighted. You just choose different ones, see which one you like. Some of these are 2 color, like we're going here from green down to white. Here we're going from green to yellow. I'm going to use this red, white, blue option. And of course, you can go red, white, blue, or you can go blue, white, red. Depends, of course, on whether what you're trying to show. So in this case, it seems that the red numbers, if they're the bigger numbers, maybe these are error rates, or I don't know, some problem where big numbers are a problem. So we click that and we're done. And that was really easy. So let's try it again. And we're going to do something different. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to use red as the big numbers. And if we want to change anything, just click on conditional formatting and then click manage rules. And then we get this pop-up about this same one we're using here, and we're only using 1. And then we're going to say we want to edit the rule. And there are other options up here that we are not going to explore. But you can see we have a 3 color scale. We could switch to color, or the data bars or the icon sets right in here. But this is what I want to point out. It goes blue for small values, and then white in the middle, and then red for the largest values. Now, how does it decide what color each cell should be? Well, we're going from the minimum. Here is the lowest value, so the smallest number. And in our table, that is 11, up to the highest value, which in our table is 58. And then where we shift from the blue to the red, where we're just strictly white, that is right at the 50th percentile, or the median, if you like statistics words. So the midpoint of our data. So if we go back here and look at that, or the original one or the second one, we've got 11% is our darkest blue, 58% is our darkest red. And then the midpoint of that should be, let's see, 11 plus 58 is 69. So about around 35, we should have things that are basically white. So we're seeing around 30, which is, I'm surprised 34. You know, there's still parts of this that don't apparently work quite like I expect them to, because it's supposed to be the midpoint of the data, as far as I understand it. We'll go back here, we'll manage the rules, and what we're going to do is we're going to change things. So we're going to go, instead of using the lowest value, we're going to go this down to 0. So dark blue is going to be 0 on this scale, and I'm going to make the highest thing be the number 100%, or just 1. Instead of the percentile, I'm going to use the number 0.5. So I have 0.5 will be the white band, and we'll go all the way down to 0 and all the way up to 100. So let's see what that looks like. And what you see is that basically everything is blue. Why? Because basically all of the numbers are smaller than 50, except for 55 and 58. So which of those 2 representations is better? Well, like everything, it depends on what the point is that you were trying to make. On the top one, we've got things spread out on this continuum, and we can see what are the smallest numbers in the range and what are the biggest numbers in the range. So if we wanted to know who's doing really well and who's doing really poorly, that's obvious to see. So setting the min and the max based on the min and the max of the data is going to help us see how the data points are distributed. If on here we go from 0 up to 100, and we're going to see a different story. So here, 11 is still the darkest one, but you notice it's not as dark as the 11 was up here, because here, the darkest blue is reserved for 0. And here, the darkest red is reserved for 100, and nothing's close to 100. So what we see here is that basically almost all of our values are below 50%. And we only have a couple that are above 50%. And so this visualization obviously would be more relevant if we are trying to highlight the fact that, look, there are very few people who are above 50%. Everybody has gotten their values below 50%. So again, like everything, it depends on what the message of your graphic is supposed to be, which way you want to do it. Okay, moving on to data bars. Again, we highlight it, conditional formatting, data bars, and we have basically, well, two choices. One is what color do you want? And then the other is, do you want a solid fill or do you want a gradient fill? So I'm going to go with the gradient fill blue. And honestly, I'm not a huge fan of these. I think they're kind of cluttered because in a lot of these values, the end of the bar is interfering with the number that makes it hard to read. Now, there's one thing we could do to try to minimize that. We go here, manage rules, edit the rule, and here you can see where you could change from a gradient fill to a solid fill, and here we have as many color options as you want. But here we could change the border, and I'm just going to say no border, and click OK, and see what we get. And now I find it a little bit easier to read because we don't have a black line going along the end of the end, getting in the way of reading the numbers. So I feel like that's an improvement. There's one thing that annoys me about the gradient is that every bar starts at the same value of blue and ends at the same value, sort of fades into the white. So if you look at 15, it starts at the same darkness of blue and goes through the same range. 50, that is 58, which starts at the same dark blue and fades to the same light blue. It just seems to me like 15%, it should just be like the first quarter of this bar. So it should just be all pretty much dark blue. Or like, let's see, 30% is half of 58, roughly. So it seems like that should just be half of that bar. And I don't know any way to change that. Maybe there is, but I don't know. Again, not a huge fan of the data bars, so I haven't spent a ton of time playing with it. But there is one other thing that I'm going to show you here, which is, it always seemed weird to me that 58%, it's our biggest value, so it fills the whole box. And again, kind of like what we were saying with the coloring, it depends on what you're trying to show. Here, 58% is the biggest value, 11% is the smallest value. So 11% has this short little bar, and 58 fills the cell. It makes it easiest to see what value is the biggest and what value is the smallest. We could go here and manage the rules, and we could, again, set the minimum to be the number 0, and we could set the maximum to be the number 1, and see what we get now. What we see is that 11% is even tinier now, and 58%, or even better, 49 is basically half the width of the box. So if we change width of the boxes, the lines get longer because they're just going to fill half the box. So in this case, it's sort of like that second graph down here. It's easier to see, yeah, we got somebody's barely over half, as opposed to the previous one, just made it easier to see the relative size of things. Okay, lastly, icons. I think these can be pretty helpful. So we go here to icon sets, and then it's just simple. Do you want 3? Do you want color? Do you want 5? Do you want red light, green light? Do you want little flags? Do you want pie charts? Do you want, old school cell bars? What do you want? I'm going to go on kind of like these. So you can see we've got red, yellow, green. And again, of course, we can go here and edit the rules. and change the point at which the numbers, we switch colors. So here we're saying if it's above 67%, percentile of the data, we could go here and we could change it to be a particular number. And then we would see the same sort of thing we've seen before, which is, oops, I did something wrong. I don't know, I did wrong that time. Well, now that I've made the mess, oops, what happened? Manage rules, edit rule. Oh, oops. Okay. So that should have been 0.67, and this should have been 0.33. That's what I did. I hope. Yes. Okay. So here we see there's nothing above 66%. So all we get is red and yellow. And again, it just depends on what it is that you're trying to emphasize. I'm going to hit Control Z here a couple of times to get back to where we were previously. As you can see, there were stars, and if you're talking about trying to rate products or something, it seems like those stars could be a pretty handy option. But the problem for me, where are the stars? Oh, here are the stars. There are only 3 options. We can't have more options. And it would be nice to have, like 20%, 40%, multiple star icons possible. So what it would be nice to do is say, okay, well, they don't have one that has more stars. It'd be nice to just go out and find some icons, some pictures of stars, and use those, or whatever kind of emojis you want. Use the poop emoji if it's below 20% or something. And unfortunately, I don't know of a simple way to do that. It seems like you should be able to choose some icon set, 5 little emojis or icons of some kind, and just use this same sort of rules. As far as I can tell, there is not a simple way to do that with conditional formatting. I know ways to do it in Excel, but it just takes a little bit more work. So we've talked about tables with heat maps, and we've talked about decisions to make at setting the minimum and maximum values. We've talked about data bars, and we've talked about icon sets. So I hope this has been helpful.